What about Bruiser Bob Sweetan? Haven't spent a lot of time talking about him here on the show.
No, I'll give you. He was a miserable, no good piece of shit.
Oh, wow. Goodness gracious.
When have you heard? When have you heard me do that before?
Never. That's a first.
Yeah, Google a guy because I don't like talking about him. He I think he got charged and found guilty of molesting children. Of course, he got along with Grizz then. What a fucking deal! I didn't need to be a part of that. My life didn't need to be a part of that. Uh,
Wow. Yeah. I just a quick Google says his ex wife Rebecca once said, "quote He's a waste of skin as far as I'm concerned. He fried his brain with drugs, deserted his children, abused them emotionally, physically, sexually, mentally. Goodness gracious."
yeah, I was doing interviews in Fort Smith. Sweet Tan was the top heel at the time because he's Grizz's buddy. Some of those cats that Grizz surrounded himself with were, you look back and say, God Almighty. I've often thought about if Leroy had not been blind, a lot of that shit would not have happened. Because there's no way in the world he's going to condone.
He didn't know. Wow. Okay.
Didn't know.
Yeah.
We hear the rumors, but
Right.
he'd been in the business so long that who do you believe in the pro wrestling business? You say, well, you believe people take them at their word. Well, you can take them at their word if you want to, and I got no problem with that. But I ain't. I got to be. It's got to be proven to me, or I just if it's just too damn dramatic, I just walk away from it. I don't need that damn drama. Nobody does. Man, when you get too wrapped up in problems that you cannot solve or affect, you're making a massive mistake in your life. So, but Sweet Tan was just a miserable piece of shit. So I'm in Fort Smith. We're in a little studio doing interviews after the show for the next week for Saturday's TV. I think we saw the little graph there that Fort Smith was on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
And so you do the show that night, then you go to the TV station and do promos and record the promos, and then they would be dropped into the Saturday show promoting the next Wednesday. So there's one of our biggest sponsors is a car dealership guy on the car dealership. He had he brought his wife and his little daughter to the interviews just to see the guys and see how it's done and all that stuff. Well, Sweet Tan comes over. We're doing something. He comes over to me and says, "Man, I could make her purr."
Oh, God.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, well, he's just a horny guy and on the road. And I'm trying to make excuses for the wrestler, and I'm assuming he's talking about the mom.
Oh, Lord.
And he's talking about the little girl might have been 10.
Oh, God.
Yeah. You got to filter. It's interesting what you got to learn to filter, Conrad. And you really, it really is. Especially when I was so young and impressionable at that time. I made the right moves getting out, and some of my service was interrupted because I just couldn't handle the. I'm just a better. I think I'm a better human being than that.
You mentioned him a few times, Grizzly Smith,
Yeah.
and stories through Dark Side of the Ring and whatnot have started to come out in recent years. And of course, most of our listeners are more familiar with his son, Jake the Snake Roberts. But were there any redeeming qualities about Grizzly? I mean, all we've heard is the really dark stuff. Did you ever have a good experience at all with Grizz, or was
Yeah. He wasn't always bad to me.
right?
I went around him a great deal. I remember after TV interviews a few times, he'd take me to lunch, which is unusual. Sounds mundane, normal, but in pro wrestling, you find that's not the way it is. It's just a different breed of cats, man. Uh, but that's about the size of it. Buying a meal.
Do you
I didn't like his booking. I didn't like his pointing me. He wanted me out because he knew I had value, and I was threatening, and I was young, and so that's kind of where I would leave it. But how he hung around there again, if Leroy had sight, if he had believed the right people, like his wife, then things would have been a lot different in that respect, because it was so obvious. You know, walk into a building and walk in not hand in hand, but side by side with two, 12, 13-year-old little girls.
Oh God.
And of course, the boys are not going to say anything because he's booking and doing the payoffs. And then to give the report back to Leroy, he was, allegedly Leroy's eyes and ears. I don't know how much he told Leroy. He didn't tell him the whole truth. He couldn't tell him the whole truth.
Right.
So that's
Do you think it was a don't ask, don't tell type situation where guys maybe suspected and assumed, but everybody was kind of afraid to ask?
Some of them knew Conrad because they participated.
Oh,
it was just horrible. It was just horrible. And lucky for me, when the referee assignments came out, the booking sheet came out, and if I was on the north end, the Tulsa, Oklahoma City, Little Rock, that end, and I didn't go to Louisiana or Mississippi. That was the south end, and that's where Jack Howe and some of his buddies went. And that was just run wide open. Drugs, women, children. It was horrible. So not having to get booked there, I sacrificed some money.
Right.
But I maintained some level of peace of mind. I went through some of the worst times in my life trying to figure out, am I at the wrong place?
Right.
At the wrong time, or should I just go do something else? I needed 17 hours to graduate. I wish I had graduated. If I had everything to do all over again, I'd have made sure I graduated. And I'm proud of my daughters who graduated. They got higher educations. But I stressed that all their life. You got to have plan B. Always have a plan B of some sort. It may be a stopgap, temporary plan B, but you got to have options. And you are the one that will create your options. So I just it was the Wild West, man. It was the Wild effing West.
You were pretty plain in saying you felt like Leroy would have stopped it, but he couldn't see it. Mm-hmm. Did Watts see any of this? How did he?
Oh, hell yeah. That's when Watts came back to take over. The Grizzlies stayed around a little while, but
Sweetan was out.
Yeah. A lot of them were out. But you got a little territory. You got 16, 18 guys in a territory. So you can't just go crazy and clean house. What are you going to replace the guys that you're cleaning house with? Who's going to, who you bringing in to make? You still got to sell tickets, and it takes time to get people over. So you got to keep guys around a little while to get the juice out of them that you've invested. In other words, Sweetan probably lost a Cowboy 10 times on his way out. I refereed some of them. It's funny how guys work. When Sweetan would work with a baby face other than Watts and Hodge, again, Hodge, like Luthez said, oh, he's a different deal. Hold on. Hodge, different deal. He worked different. He was a bully to all these baby faces.
Right.
And stiff. All that stuff. He hit me so hard one night, it bloodied my nose, and he did it on purpose. One of these deals. So where you step over just a little bit more so I get a better shot at you, boom.
Elbow right in the nose.
Right in the nose. So what I learned there, you know what I learned about that situation, Conrad? He was right-handed. Sweetan, the worthless piece of shit, was right-handed. And I was breaking him on the right side. So in other words, I put my fat ass face right in front of his boom.
Yeah.
So when I would going forward, I learned that you break on the opposite side.
Right.
And referees that are working a match with the right-handed wrestlers and they're breaking on the right side are making a massive mistake. It's simple. Just take a step around.
Right.
Take a step this way or whatever, you know. So it was, I learned a lot, but he was a bully, a bad guy, bad person. You know, how, how would you even, I don't even understand, man, how he could hang around as long as he did. He had a pretty good, he had a long run. He worked in San Antonio and around Central States, this nickel and dime shit. He never got a big break. And the irony of that is he was a pretty good hand.